Meanwhile, we are doing everything possible to assist the victims and their families. That will include trauma counseling for those who might need it. This afternoon, I will report to the General Assembly, and on Thursday, the Deputy Secretary General will hold a town hall in New York to discuss the tragedy. Clearly, the UN and our people are being targeted more and more often by terrorists worldwide. Too often, it seems, we are considered a soft target. The security of our staff working overseas must be paramount. We must draw the lessons to be learned from Abuja. And together, we must commit the effort and resources to implement them. Our goal must be to stay, not live, in difficult security conditions. We must continue to carry out our vital work, not lock ourselves behind the fortresses. We must manage risk, not become risk-averse. I'd like to close by thanking His Excellency President Jonathan Goodluck and the government of Nigeria for their assistance in the aftermath of the attack. Once again, I extend my deep sympathies and condolences to the victims and their loved ones. And I salute the courage and dedication of our UN team in Abuja, for whom this is such a sad and terrible blow. Mr. President, distinguished members of the Council, you have seen the latest reports from Libya. I think we can all be encouraged by the current trends. Yesterday, we received confirmation that members of Muammar Gaddafi's family have sought asylum in Algeria. The National Transition Council appears to be largely in control of Tripoli and other cities. Fighting continues in some parts of the country, most notably Sirte, Sabha, Juwara, and points to the south. Yet I think we can now hope for a quick conclusion to the conflict and an end to the suffering of Libya's people. Over the past week, I have spoken on several occasions with the chairman of the NTC, Mr. Mustafa Abdel Jalil, and many other world leaders. We discussed the UN role in Libya in the month ahead, including such areas as election assistance, transitional justice, and policing, as well as urgent humanitarian needs. We will continue these discussions in Paris on Thursday at the summit-level meeting of the Libya Support Group. My special advisor for post-conflict planning for Libya, Mr. Ian Martin, and my special envoy, Mr. Abdelillah Al-Khatib, will accompany me, along with the Undersecretary General for Political Affairs, Lynn Pascoe. Meanwhile, on Friday, August 26, I held a video conference meeting with the heads of the League of Arab States, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, the African Union, and the European Union. All agreed that at this critical moment, the international community must come together with an effective, well-coordinated program of action. All agreed as well that the United Nations should lead that effort. Following this meeting, the Council of the League of Arab States held an extraordinary ministerial session in Cairo on August 27. There, I understand that League of Arab States member states have agreed that the NTC should fill the seat of Libya at the League of Arab States. The meeting also called on the United Nations to allow the NTC to do the same at the UN itself. Also on 26 August, the Deputy Secretary General participated at the African Union Peace and Security Council meeting in Addis Ababa. There too, African leaders stressed the need for national reconciliation and underscored the AU's commitment to work with all Libyan stakeholders to stabilize the country. Mr. President, we must act quickly and decisively to meet the considerable challenges ahead. The humanitarian situation in Libya demands urgent action. We are beginning to see signs of progress. According to some reports, large caches of medical supplies and food have been discovered over the weekend by the transitional authorities, apparently stockpiled by the former regime. Hospitals are reopening. The World Food Programme has sent in a large humanitarian convoy from Tunisia carrying water, medical supplies, and blood donated by the government of Tunisia. The World Health Organization is sending 45 tons of medical supplies as part of that same effort. Tripoli's seaport is now open and functioning, an essential step forward in getting international relief supplies and workers into the country. However, water supplies are critically short. According to our latest reports, an estimated 60% of Tripoli's population is without water and sanitation. UNICEF engineers are working to repair the pumping stations that conduct water from the great man-made river to the capital and other areas, but we do not know how long it will take to restore service. Clearly, ongoing security concerns make the situation precarious at best. It is essential that sufficient fuel and spare parts be available if we are to avoid further shutdowns of the water system. Meanwhile, we are working urgently to mobilize other resources for delivering water, tanker trucks among them. In the coming days, we will likely be requesting urgent international assistance in this matter. It was vitally important that the Security Council Sanctions Committee acted to release $1.5 billion in frozen Libyan assets for humanitarian assistance. The first allocation of these assets, $110 million, has just been made. Further action will be needed in the coming days. I appeal to the Council to continue to be responsive to the requests of the transitional authorities for funding. Also on the humanitarian front, let me note that the International Organization for Migration, IOM, successfully evacuated approximately 1,000 migrants and third country nationals from Tripoli on August 28. Lastly, human rights. During recent days, we have seen growing evidence of summary executions, torture, and human rights violations. These will be looked into by the International Commission of Inquiry on Libya, which is expected to submit its first oral update to the Human Rights Council on 19 September. Mr. President, I cannot overstate the urgency of this moment. Time is of the essence. The people of Libya are looking to the international community for help. The transitional government will be outlining specific requests in the coming days. My aim is to get UN personnel on the ground absolutely as quickly as possible under a robust Security Council mandate. My special advisor, Mr. Ian Martin, has been consulting daily with the National Transitional Council and other Libyan stakeholders, as have I and other senior members of our team. In our response, the UN will operate under three fundamental principles. First, national ownership. Libya's future is for Libyans to decide. We will act in accordance with their needs and desires, not vice versa. Second, rapid response and delivery. Mr. Ian Martin and his team have been engaged in a preparatory process to enable the UN to respond swiftly to requests by the Libyan authorities. It appears from our consultations with the NTC that these requests will focus on mainly five areas: restoring public security and order and promote rule of law, leading inclusive political dialogue, promoting national reconciliation, and determining the constitution-making and electoral process, extending state authority, including through strengthening emerging accountable institutions and the restoration of public services, protecting human rights, particularly for vulnerable groups, and supporting transitional justice, and taking immediate steps to initiate economic recovery. Our third principle, that is effective coordination. Our most important job will be to ensure that multilateral, regional, and bilateral efforts are complementary and correspond to Libyan wishes. In turn, this will require Libya's transitional authorities to provide clear priorities, short-term and longer-term. Our on-the-ground teams will work closely with the country's leadership to ensure that confusion and duplication of effort are kept to a minimum and that time and financial resources are not wasted. Mr. President, distinguished Council members, we are all acutely conscious of the magnitude of the challenge in Libya and of the enormous opportunity to help the Libyan people build a more democratic, prosperous, and stable future. In coming to their assistance, we must speak and act as one. In our response to the post-conflict challenge, we must be proactive and effective. Yet, at the same time, we must be sensitive to the complex needs and desires of the Libyan people themselves. As I said earlier, the future of Libya must be led and owned by the Libyan people themselves. The needs and priorities for national unity, reconciliation, and inclusiveness will be the foundation of our efforts in the days and months to come. Thank you very much.
I thank the Secretary General for his briefing. There are no further speakers inscribed on my list. I now invite members to informal consultations to continue our discussion on this subject. The meeting is adjourned.
Congratulations.